Hello, it's Judith here with episode 4 of our mini-series on this transitional period for the younger people in our lives, starting school for the first time, changing schools, or now we're at the older ones, maybe university, maybe college, maybe still changing schools or something else entirely. So I think the advice for you as a parent or a carer is still very similar. They'll be much more able to spot your concerns and anxieties than the younger groups. So they won't be just picking up on your facial expressions or your tone of voice. They'll actually be much more acutely aware of how you're feeling. So again, it's important to manage that. Of course, there might be 18 going off to university, but they're still your baby and they're going away and they're going to be all on their own. So of course you're going to be worried. And even if they're just changing schools or going off to college, it's all new and they're still fragile, vulnerable little beings as far as you're concerned. But again, manage your own state and be available to them as much as you can be without any baggage from you. So if we look at the 16-year-olds, they may be going off to a new sixth form, in which case it's still a school, but it's a different school. The ethos, the environment may well be different. So there is a settling period there. Also, they'll be going into a group of sixth formers, some of whom, like them, are new, but most of whom are probably young people who've been together for 5 years. So friendship groups will have been established, there will be history. And so it's probably the first time they've had to deal with that kind of situation on their own, of, integrating into a group that already exists. And all sorts of things may be going on. Maybe their GCSEs weren't as good as they hoped. Maybe there's a lot of pressure around A levels and a lot of worry about. It is a big change. You're doing fewer subjects, but you are going into a much, much greater deal of depth. So the academic side of it is hard. The social side of it can be hard. And it's a completely different environment. And the last time they changed environments for most of them was when they were 11. And, parents are much more involved at that stage. So, yeah, talk to them. Give them chance to talk to you if they want to. They may not. Just be available to them and, don't pester them with questions. As I said, for the 11-year-olds, the same applies, probably more so. Don't pester them. What are you worried about this? Are you worried about that? But just be available to them. And as I said before, for the younger ones, watch their behaviour and if there are any behavioural changes. And then sometimes they can be quite dramatic. It's not uncommon for them to struggle with the friendship side of it, with the social side of it, and maybe not want to go to school, or struggle with the academic side of it and not want to admit it. So again, your child, use your instincts, look for the signs that something's not quite as right as it should be. If they're going off to college, that's an even bigger step, really, because depending on the college, there's likely to be a lot more freedom and a lot less being told what to do and when to do it. So I know some colleges, they just have to go in for the lessons that they have. They don't have to be there all the time. That's a huge opportunity when you're 16. And you don't want to stamp down with a heavy foot on, using their time and staying in the library and doing their, all of that, which is what you really want them to do, probably. But on the other hand, you don't want them to create bad habits where basically they go in for lessons and then have a nice time for the rest of the day. So it's helping them find that balance. It's really good learning. of how to manage yourself and how to manage what you have to do. And there may be some hard lessons along the way. You know, the first lot of exams or tests may show that maybe they haven't quite been doing enough work, and that can cause problems. Or they may be overworking because they were so desperate to do well, just as their compatriots in a sixth form. So you can have either end of the spectrum. So again, look out for behaviour changes, look out for things that just don't seem quite right for you. Trust your instincts, and yeah, just do your best. They're 16, for goodness sake. That's really, really hard work without, you know, the pressures of managing a new environment. And of course, some of them may be going off to do something else. Apprenticeships seem to be coming up. So they're then going into a more adult working environment. You can do degree apprenticeships now. So again, that's another level again of difference. You know, they may be in a business environment or whatever, and having to deal with adults who know what they're doing, allegedly, and having to fit in there, and having to fit working with studying and managing both at the same time. So that's a much bigger change in my book. Not one that I've experienced with my children or my grandchildren, so I don't know a great deal about it, but it's, I think, fraught with worries. There may be some travel or being away from home for some of the time or whatever. So again, just be there, be available, and yeah, I keep saying this, but trust your instincts. And then, of course, we've got the 18-year-olds who are now allegedly adult. My granddaughter, bless her, when she was 18, said, I'm not really an adult yet. She said, I'm practicing for the moment. I'll be an adult when I'm 21, which I think is actually quite sensible. I'm not sure how much practicing she's done, but so they're an adult. If they're going off to university, they're in most cases leaving home and facing a huge challenge. So they're away from home. They're living on their own, probably in a shared flat with people they don't know, unless they're really lucky. They're having to do everything. They're having to get themselves up in the morning. They're having to cook for themselves, shop for themselves, do their laundry, change their beds, and go to lectures and do work and socialise. So it's a big, big change. And how do you prepare them for that? Well, as always, gently and compassionately, I would say. But yes, trying to, and again, you know, they're still officially legally adults, but not quite. So you know your child and you know how best to approach your child. But advice and support, being available. I mean, I think making it clear that whatever happens, you're there. You know, if things are you're really struggling, you're there. And also making them aware that there are or should be support systems where they are. If that's a preferred choice for them, there should be people, both academically and pastorally, who will help them. And you can't even look out for changes of behaviour because you're not with them. You know, obviously you're communicating with them, and depending where they are, they may be coming home occasionally. You can worry if they're coming home too often, because that may seem that they're not settled. You can worry if they're not coming home at all, because maybe they're not good and, you know, they don't want to show it. Or maybe they're just having a wonderful time and don't want to come home because there's lots of exciting things to do at the weekend. So it is a real letting go of the apron strings. If you think of this series, you know, 4-year-olds going to school for the first time, little letting go of the apron strings, but you're still pretty much in control. 11, yeah, you've got adolescence ahead of you and interesting times. And then at 18, you may be having to let them go off on their own and be there for them. And even your own children are different, aren't they? I mean, they don't sort of come out of a package, and you know, just because they're born in the same family and brought up in the same family, they don't turn out to be the same people. And that's obvious from a very early age, but becomes more and more obvious, I think, as they get to adulthood. So yeah, trust your instincts, and strike a very careful balance between being overly concerned and involved and them feeling they've been sort of chucked out and left bereft. I mean, I did know somebody whose parents actually rented out their bedroom when they went off to university. So in fact, they could never actually go back, but I'm sure none of you are thinking of doing that. But it's been a balance all the way through adolescence, hasn't it? And this is just a bigger balance, a harder one, because then you're not there to know, you don't know what's going on, and you have to accept that. But for me, university, I think, is a really good break between being at home, having everything done for you, being ferried here, there and everywhere for whatever activities you're doing, if you're lucky, and being thrown out into the wide world where you're working and having to manage your money and all the rest of it. It's a good interim. It's a good easing in, but don't panic if there are problems early on, because it is a big change. I mean, I went to a university a million years ago, so being in halls for us meant you were fed 3 times a day. I honestly don't know what happened to my washing, but I have a feeling there was a laundry that you took it away and brought it back. And so we were much more mollycoddled and protected. Nowadays, they are, they're having to be self-sufficient and look after themselves physically and emotionally and mentally, and make new friends and find their way around a new place and make that balance between work and play. There's an awful lot going on. So don't panic if there are issues early on. Make sure you are providing the support and they're accepting the support from you, and also that if necessary they're looking for support from the environment that they're in. But don't panic, because it'll take a time. It'll take a time for them to get used to it. It's a big, you really have pushed them out of the nest, or they've chosen to fly. Okay, I hope that's helped. It gets harder as we go to the older ages, but as I say, trust yourself, trust your instincts. You know your children, even though they're now mini adults. So yeah, trust yourself to be able to do the right thing and help them in the right way. Okay, best of luck. And as always, whether it's 4, 11 or 16 or 18, if you're worried about your child or if you're struggling yourself, you know where I am. I'm always happy to have a chat and see if I can help you. Okay. And that's me for this time. And I will see you next week on the next video, starting with something completely different. Okay, you take care. Bye.